Thanks again for tuning in to Transforming Your Relationship. I'm your host, Bonitto Grange, your relationship and life coach. We will be continuing our conversation on relationship readiness. And joining us again will be Pastor Clive Atkinson, which should be joining us here in a moment. Stephen and Carol Ross McLeod, they're here again tonight. And so before we start, we'll just start off with a scripture, which I think is so profound. It's pretty well used in a lot of wedding vows, but it's 1 Corinthians chapter 13, 4 and 5. It says, charity. When we talk about charity, we're talking about love. Charity suffereth long and is kind. Envieth not, it's vaunted not itself, is not puffed up, doth not behave itself unseemly, seeketh not her own, and is not easily provoked, thinketh no evil. But when I go back and review this passage of scripture, I ask myself, so where am I aligned in this verse, or where am I misaligned? So it's a way of basically, for myself anyway, it might be helpful for somebody else also. It's a way of me just seeing where I am, where the word of God is, where I am in my life right now, where I am with my and there's times too, that I'll actually ask my wife, okay, so what could I have done better, or what's missing? And I think if we have those open conversations, sometimes it will really open up sometimes the can of worms. Sometimes it'll just open up some areas that are uncomfortable, but we can always think everything is just working right. And, but yet still there might be some things that are off. So the conversation tonight is all about relationship readiness. I don't know how ready, well, just for a little interviewing here with Stephen and Carol, how ready do you think you folks were when you, before we get into our conversation? She's laughing there. How ready do you think you were when you, before you got married?
I don't think we were ready. For me, I don't think we were ready. I think we should have waited a year or so before we got married. That's how I feel.
Okay.
Didn't feel that way at the time, though.
It didn't seem that way. You felt you were ready at that time?
Both of us felt that way, that we were ready. But
you both?
In retrospect, we can.
I think we should have waited.
You should have waited. So I'm curious, if you hadn't waited, what difference would that have made?
For one, I think a bit of growing up was needed. A little bit more growing up was needed.
Okay.
I think we're both nice people, put that in quotation. And I think we depended a lot on the fact that we were nice people. But nice don't necessarily mean you are ready for marriage. I think for me, I was scared of doing something that I had done before. To be honest with you, I understood the scripture when it said it's better to marry than to burn. Prior to that, I thought it meant, if you're overheated or whatever, go get married. But then I started understanding it better. That if you have already settled in your mind that this is the person for you, it's better to get married than to do anything silly. I hadn't done anything silly, so I didn't want to do anything silly. So
okay.
I just wanted to be safe. For me, that was what. And I felt like my fences was down with Stephen. I always had my fences up. I got nervous about my fences when it comes to Stephen because I think I just completely trusted him that way. And so I just wanted to make sure. So, and I thought, since I've already decided this is the person, why am I waiting? And I remember he asked me a question, why am I letting him wait? So we had December put down for.
That's a man's question. That's a man's question.
December was the date we were going to go for, and then about March, I think it was March or February somewhere, he said to me, Ross, why are you letting me wait? I mean, I've behaved myself all this time. I've been good. Why am I waiting? I kind of felt the same way. I was a little nervous. I was never nervous before until I met him. I became a little nervous as to how strong I was or am, and I wanted to stay in that position with Christ. And so when he asked me, Carol, why are you letting me wait so long? I thought, why not just put it up for August so that nothing happens? We still can stand before the Lord, being happy that we behaved. And so that's kind of one of the reasons why I pushed it up.
Okay.
To August. But I think in retrospect, though, the fact that we were nice is not a good reason to get married per se. We love each other, but we were nice. I think we depended on, and I think that has been one of the things in our marriage. we're both respectful. We don't say any old thing that comes to our mouth.
Okay.
It's a thing with both of us. In just in general, in terms of most people, we don't say anything that comes to our mouth. We always taper what comes out of our mouth. That was good.
I like the comment you made. You don't, just because you're nice doesn't mean you're ready for marriage.
No,
It's true.
yeah.
Because what happens is what we began discovering was that marriage is not just two persons coming together who love each other. It's being able to have a system, right? You need systems in place in order to make it run almost like a machine. You need to have systems in place to take care of all the little issues that all the challenges, all the roles that marriage relationships require, you know. So if you don't have those systems in place, it's almost like you're running a company. If you don't have structure and systems and procedures in place, then you start, you start running into problems, and you're not prepared to deal with those problems in a way that won't create damage, you know.
Like for example, I think, for example, we're going to mention this.
You'll have to speak a little bit more towards the mic there that you're in.
Like for example, money. It was just not something we discussed, but became a big issue later on because how we dealt with it initially, the dynamics changed, but we did not have policies and procedures put in place to deal with those changes. And so it was one of the issues that we had, one of the things that we had. Stephen will run far away from anything that looks like controversy. He does not like controversy of any sort. He doesn't like conflict. He doesn't like conflict of any sort. And so if he deems whatever you're doing as conflict or as introducing conflict, he just shuts down. He will just stop talking. That became one of the other issues with us. And I remember him saying something on marriage matters, and I thought it was so strange, but it was just simple, cool. One day we were arguing, but he doesn't call what we do arguing. So one day we were discussing, and I said,
loud discussions.
Right. I said to him, you have a right to speak your mind, you know, it's your mind. You have a right to say what you feel, how you think. This is not a discussion for me alone. I can't know how you think unless you tell me. It's your right, it's your God-given right to say, this is how I feel, I don't like this, but you got to tell me because I'm no mind reader. And he was explaining on marriage matters that he never knew that he had that option where he could just say what he feels and how he thinks. You know, guys hold it in and say, I never told you that. When we were talking earlier, you were able to say what the situation was different. I never lived with you, so it was easy to say what I feel, but then now you're in my space and I don't want any conflict. And it was at that time that he started just talking his mind. Remember last week I said he drove me crazy. That's what I meant. When he wouldn't talk, he wouldn't say, this is, and then I felt like he was protecting himself, and I kept asking him, from me? Why would you protect yourself from me? Am I going to harm you? I love you. Why would you think I'm going to harm you? But unless he changed that mindset, he would always feel that whatever I'm coming with may harm him emotionally. So
that's interesting. You said he never thought he had an option.
He never thought. Well, let him explain.
I haven't even got into a session yet tonight, but this is okay. Go ahead. I
just want to explain that to you.
I was never one for conflict, dealing with arguments or whatever. If there was an issue, I would just, if I can fix it right away, I fix it right away. But if I couldn't, I would just walk away from it and say, you know what? Later I thought this out. I'm not going to walk near that minefield, you know. So yeah, I never knew I had the option of running into the storm, you know. I suppose subconsciously I thought that storm simply just took off roofs and wrecked windows and doors. You know, I never knew that storms were essential part of that. It has a cleansing effect. So like I said, it's sometimes our ignorance, you know, the way we view things.
Right.
makes us respond inappropriately to situations.
Mm.
So that was one of the flaws that I think we had in terms of, well, I had in terms of my communication skills.
Okay, and we'll touch a little bit on that here coming up too, to help others. And it's good when we speak on this level because there's some other men out there that many times might feel the same way. So I think it's a state of maturity too. As you grow together, you learn together, but at the same time, you have to be willing to grow together and be willing to have those conversations, which are sometimes uncomfortable. I think I could be wrong. I think those conversations are more uncomfortable for men than they are for women because
They probably are. They probably are.
am I right? Because the wife will the wife will just say what you need to say and get off her chest. And sometimes we feel like, is this the right time to say this, or should I say this? And I guess we just build as men. I guess I'm speaking for myself here. Right? I'm speaking for all men, but I think sometimes I'll build stories that are actually not true, maybe of how she's going to react if I say this, or how she's going to feel if I say this. But as time goes on, we grow together, we mature together, we love together, and realizing that we're on a journey. We're on a journey, and that destination is it's way ahead of us, right?
Yeah, in general, I find that women tend to have what I think I would put in terms of greater emotional elasticity.
Absolutely.
We are tough physically. We tend to be tougher, but I think in terms of the intangible qualities, women tend to excel greater at those. We are very good in terms of physicality, things that deal with the physical. But women, in terms of intangibilities, women tend to express greater strength in that area. That's what I found.
Absolutely, yeah. I think a lot of women would vouch for that and would say amen. Amen. So I'm just gonna move on here. When we're going to talk a little bit about finance. Like what conversations, those are just getting married and they're thinking about taking that leap. What conversations do you think that couples should really have about finance?
Don't assume that. Don't assume that.
Carol will have to move for somehow you're not.
See is what you're gonna get. Possibly. Don't assume.
Don't assume.
Yeah. Don't assume that what you see is what you're gonna get. By that I mean, Right. So for example, you have asking that Steve gift giving, for example, and I'm gonna you're gonna submit that fall into finance. I would give gifts. I love giving gifts. That was my thing. I love to give gifts. Birthday, anniversary, it's Thursday. Stephen did not come from that culture. But while we were dating, he saw me do all of that. So in my head, he understands this to be something that I like doing.
For some reason, you're still a little bit muffled, Carol. I'm not sure what the system here today.
Okay. I'm not sure. Are you hearing me?
That's much better.
I'm coming forward to the mic.
Yes.
So I was saying that he saw me give gifts regularly while we were dating. It was a big thing. He planned a lot of these occasions with me. And so for me, this is something he knows I like. This was not a part of his culture. And so 10 years later, I'm still fussing him about giving gifts. Valentine's, definitely. Every other time, maybe. And so it became an issue. I kept assuming that he had seen me do this so often. Why wouldn't he think this is what I want? Why would he not do that? And take that into the whole concept of money. If you don't say it, if it's not part of his culture, he may not respond to it simply because he sees you doing it.
Okay.
Whatever it is. You have to verbalize what you want. For example, I think one of the biggest mistakes that I made, and it may sound really weird for people, is the first time he did not give me a birthday present, I should have made sure that never happened. I should have made sure that sorry, baby. No, it's okay, whatever. Then it's okay. You have to speak your mind. You have to say, listen, sit down, we need to have this discussion. Remember when I said this is important to me, this is important. So you have to have a policy and procedure as to how money must be dealt with because it will become an issue.
It will
First,
become.
it wasn't an issue for us. It really wasn't. I just did the regular thing I always did. He did the regular thing he always did, his money, and it was okay. But then kids came into the picture.
Mm.
And that had to change, and it became an issue that we never saw coming. So I think even before you start talking, how will money be handled? Don't be afraid. I'm always, this is a kissing thing that you do before, watch it. Watch it. Because for the average male, if he can kiss away a problem so it don't become an issue while you're an uncomfortable topic, that's what's going to happen. I always tell couples, hold off on the kissing story. Because you're going to find that issues that you're supposed to be dealing with, if it's either she or him, whichever one don't like conflict, may start all being all there are topics that need to be dealt with seriously before you get married. Because let me tell you, after you get married, don't ever think that after you get married, you still going to have to fix it, but some things could be handled better in the pre-marital stage. So, for example, who is going to be paying for the light? Who is going to be paying for the water? Who deals with this? What is your income? You have to put income on the table.
Everything together on the table.
Earning. How is the bank account going to work? Are we going to have joint accounts?
Right.
Are we going to have joint accounts as well as separate accounts, which is something I think should happen. You should have a joint account, and each should have your separate accounts. And you should make a decision as to how much goes into the joint account. What percentage of the salary goes into the joint account? It should be a discussion, not the man telling the woman how it must work, or the woman telling the man how it must work. It must be a discussion. And you have to tell them, those who are not married, please hear me. You have to discuss this. It's really bad in marriage if it's not healthy.
I know it's tempting to dissect it.
You're in love.
Yeah, you don't want to take away the
romance, right?
of the moment, you know. But believe you me, these are like time bombs that
You're cutting out, Steve. For some of the
these are like time bombs.
Yeah, these are like time bombs that you need to diffuse before you even begin to get lifted under one, because it
never goes away.
It doesn't. And you have to resolve. You want to resolve it while there's peace.
Yes. And in your household, who pays the bill? So if a young lady is used to paying all the bill, don't assume that is his background. He may come from a family where mom is the one that paid all the bills. And so both of you genuinely have this discussion.
Yeah. Culture. What is the culture that both of you come from? You need to be aware enough to identify the culture that you came from and be honest about it. For example, if you come from a family background where your family culture doesn't practice certain things, or they don't believe certain things, or they do believe certain things, all of that needs to be brought to the table and said, here, this is how my family is, this is how we grew up. And then you evaluate what the disadvantages are, or the advantages, so that you can plan a strategy, right? Because if you
plan a strategy, mean write it down.
Write it down.
Write it down.
Yeah, because you
write it down. Write it down. This is what
it's interesting. Maybe some don't take that into consideration, as you were saying, that especially if you're from different cultures. So how was money handled in your culture? Not even within your culture, but in your home, which is part of your culture, obviously. And how was money handled because you're definitely going to get a good possibility of different ways how money was handled, or who paid what, or whether the wife even had access to an account or not. You might come from a culture where the man is the one that holds that finance, and the woman is yours, got to ask or inquire, whatever it is. So definitely the conversation between two different cultures is going to definitely be I wouldn't even say a challenge, but I think it's an opportunity for growth where finance is concerned, because rather than making it become an issue, you can have those conversations before. But here's interesting. We talked about prenup. Um, how does that come in, or when should that come in? Do Christians have prenup? I'm sure some folks out there would like some views. I don't know if you ran across some of that in the past, and I hope you come across clear this time, because last time we had a conversation where the folks are much clearer. I'm not sure what might be the internet there at the time, but yeah, let's have some conversation about prenup. What's the conversation about prenup that should be?
Personally, I think a prenup is not a bad thing, but it must be a benevolent prenup, because the idea I always get is that a prenup, the idea about a prenup is always like, sign this document so that you don't freeze enough money if the marriage fails. But I think the nature of a prenup should be always bear in mind that provision must be made for the wife, right? Now, on the surface of it, in Christian thinking as a Christian, the thought is that, why are you going to prepare a document in preparation of a marriage for divorce, when divorce is not supposed to be
part of the equation?
Yeah,
supposedly
supposed to be in our purview, right? However, time as an experience has shown us that some things can happen that you totally don't expect. Circumstances can happen
that does not necessarily mean divorce either. Right? That is not even, you're not even thinking about divorce, or it does not even have to culminate in divorce. But for me, I think it's a policy and procedure manual that needs to be written up somewhat. For example, if I am from old money, for example,
right.
I'm from old
good
money,
question. Good.
There is a policy already written up for the use of that money. And so it is the first son of every child should get particular part of the business. Now let us say you come into the marriage and you're coming to the marriage with a son. He's not his. That's not what the policy and procedure of that family. The kid is the first son of the son or the daughter, whatever, the bloodline. Right. So you have to come in understanding that this principle already exists. And so that you're going to
change it along the way.
Because you're saying, I am not the wife. It wasn't, so you have to look at what culture is from an African culture, where he is from tribal, whatever. You have to consider that. He is from Jamaica, and they are from the top family or whatever. What are the policies that happen? And for me, that's what prenup looks like in my eyes. What are the policies and procedures that must be the family policies and procedures? So, for example, let me give you a simple example, like stuff that he and I. So we're not from wealth or anything like that, but let's talk about something that I bring to the table. Now I'm going to shock you a little, so just be prepared.
Okay.
I ask him all the time. Well, I've stopped asking because now I've gotten a good picture. Who are you interested in if I die? If I die, tell me who are the persons that would be people that you consider. Now, for me, the question is not being nosy trying to find out who he likes. For me, it's I have two unique kids. Who are you planning to bring into their space? That's why I ask questions. So give me an idea where your headspace is as it relates to whoever. And I wouldn't stop bothering him until he said, okay, fine.
I've heard that question asked when somebody's possibly on their deathbed, but...
No. I'm not waiting until then. And so he would say, so-and-so seems like a nice person. And I'll say, she's too emotional. And he'll say, so-and-so, and I say, she's fine. She's okay. I think you can work there. And he'll say, what about, and I say, she's fine. Like, those persons are okay. And so for me, it is planning ahead. You have to bring people in your space who you have an idea that they're not crazy about money, they're not it's about whatever. And so you want him to start thinking when you're going to take on a life partner, if I die, who are the persons, the personality traits, what are the personality traits that you're thinking about? And I ask him questions like those because I just want to have an idea I don't care who he brings in, but I want him to think logically about
lines of succession.
Yes.
It's like when you have companies, they have all these things in place to make sure that the company doesn't go down, that it survives generation after generation after generation.
Right.
And I'm thinking, if they have all these things in place to make sure the health of the company is not affected, right?
Okay.
How is it that we don't have policies and procedures in marriage to ensure that things stay afloat? You know?
So I could have a business.
Yeah.
And I will say to Steve, this is the percent of the business that belongs to Chanel with or without another wife. This is the percentage that belongs to Terrell with or without the other wife. You understand me? So when she comes in, she knows what percentage is possible for her to get. That has already been established because they said this is for Chanel, this is for Jarrell, this is for you. And then whoever I need to leave the rest of it to, that's left up to me. We have to talk about stuff like that because somebody may come in, take over, and then my kids are left with nothing. And I say, remember, so we're going to do this house, this for Chanel and Pearl. Remember, you now need to purchase a home for your wife. And this is what we talk about. You need to make sure you have a house for your wife. We said, oh, we're going to do Chanel and Pearl. And I said, when I remarry, this is the stuff that I'm telling you will happen. This is how my plans are. When I'm doing stuff for the by themselves, they're supposed to be succession planning. This is important. For me, that's what prenup looks like.
So, Sister Carol, I can see the question being asked about the money section, but I wonder how many actually have that conversation. So, who do you see that you'd be interested? Because could that be open up a can of worms? Like, with this person?
It's important.
I've just
it's important.
Because it's about you. It's not just about your feelings. It's about, because remember, marriage should be looked at with the perspective of how the template that God has set with the patriarchs. It's always when they're mentioned, it's Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, and then the 12 tribes, because marriage union from the beginning was about succession, and that the covenant, whatever covenant agreements that were set originally, must go in continuance, in perpetuation, right?
And if there's going to be a change, it has to be discussed. It has to be discussed. It must not be thrown on somebody. It must be, okay, I feel this way about it. Can we have a discussion on it? And at least open the discussion about it. And you should tell the person beforehand what are the prerequisites, what are the things that they need to know before coming into this marriage.
And that's good, because you know what? A lot of the questions and some questions that we've been having conversation over, there's some couples that, in the past, obviously, and probably still even today, some that are listening, that just don't have those conversations about, where do we go from here if this and that and whatever happened. I mean, my wife and I have had conversations, maybe a little bit different than how you folks would have it or whatever, but still to have that conversation, because you'd like everything just to continue smoothly and not be just chaos. So the reason, like I said, for if you're going to have a prenup for one family, if you have blended family and somebody else is coming in the picture after someone dies, there'd have to be that understanding. Otherwise, there's going to be a lot of unpleasant feelings. There's going to be a lot of arguments. So you're avoiding a lot of conflict or a lot of fights that could be reduced or not even be brought up because it's already been having that conversation. So I'm going to move from that into past relationships. So one of the past relationships, so a couple, they're coming together. How much should they really reveal about their past? I mean, when it comes to the secrets and whatnot. So I hope you folks are going to come across clear enough for this one, because but yeah, for past relationships, how much should one really reveal? I got my take on that, but
I have my take on it, but I'm going to let Steve start it off.
Steve, you want to start with? Okay, I hope Steve come across nice and clear.
Well, one would hope that coming into a marriage relationship, one would have had a decent enough resume, not blemish, but sometimes what is done, you know. But as with all things, you need to be honest about anything in your past that would potentially affect your partner, right? So, for example, if you're planning to get married, then one of the things would be like reveal, to say, okay, if you had If you were married before, if you had children, if you've had children, who are they? Where are they?
Right.
Have you had abortion procedures? Um, Anything that would affect
Potential.
yeah, potential. You don't want to be 5 years down the line and then somebody pop up and say, um, Robert, where have you been? Or just
Or you will tell the baby.
yeah,
Or dad, it's nice to meet you again.
you know,
Or you can't have babies and only to find out that you've had abortion. And
yes.
that's why you can't have babies.
In other words, any loose ends that you have,
You have to
try to tie them up,
Absolutely.
as you're able to. I don't think you necessarily have to reveal things that are intimate knowledge about the person that you used to talk to, because that is kind of their privacy.
Okay.
But if it is going to be something that can potentially transfer to your partner, then they have a right to know, because it's going to affect them. Right? Some things is not their business because it's the other person's business. But if it's something, if it's a matter that can potentially affect your partner, then
or the knowledge of it could cause problems. If the knowledge of it could cause problems, then you probably need to talk about
it.
In time to come. And you're right. It's like Stephen said, you don't want 5 years down the road that you now become knowledgeable of something that had happened. And you become knowledgeable of it because you didn't hear from the person, but you heard it from somebody else that knows the individual. And now, obviously that could be a big blow up, or it could be a conversation as to iron things out, which probably might have been too late. But I would imagine now each individual would be feeling a certain way because they weren't honest up front. So again, when it comes to past relationship, I think obviously trust has got to come into the picture, number one.
Yes.
But not just past relationships, say if you were a man, not just past relationships, say with maybe another woman that you might have been with in the past, whatever, but what's actually a past relationship with your parents? What's your past relationship with your sibling? What's your past relationship in your educational system and so forth? Because I believe there's when I do one with clients in the past, there's usually a pattern that you see that evolves. That sometimes they've never seen it themselves because they're just thinking about past relationship with the individual, with a girlfriend or a boyfriend. But it goes actually beyond that. So when you tie all that in together now, I've noticed anyway that usually there's a pattern that develops from that, and sometimes folks don't really go back that far or maybe go back that deep. But for those that are listening, it's just interesting to ask those questions. So what's your past relationship with your parents, and so forth and so forth and so forth. And it's just going to give you a little bit more information before you step in. And when we talk about premarital readiness, no matter how much conversation that you have about premarital readiness, there's still going to be challenges down the road. There's still going to be hiccups. So just because you have it doesn't mean you're walking into a perfect garden where everything will be just so nice and rosy. There's still going to be challenges, but at least the more
you minimize it.
Yeah, the most information I think that you go into the relationship, I think the better off that you are.
I think some persons plan it that way because they feel like the person is not going to be with them if they disclose too much. Right. And so it's a bait and switch thing, and it's always going to cause problems. If I feel that I was baited unfairly into marrying you, I don't care how safe I am, I'm going to feel bad about certain things. And that is why it is important. And it feels deceptive. If you know the person would be upset about it, then you really do need to tell them. Because you have already recognized that there's going to be a problem, but you just want to make sure that you lock them into a marriage and then they can't come out. But then divorce is not the worst thing that can happen to a man or a woman. If you lock them into a marriage and they're not happy, divorce is not the worst thing that could happen. As a matter of fact, that is not even the worst thing that could happen. Be honest.
Be honest and upfront. I've always said it like this. I'd rather hurt now, although it's going to be painful, than to hurt later. Because if I'm going to be hurt later, I'm going to be impacted more individually than just me now. might be children
Yeah.
there, and so forth
Yeah.
and so forth, right? So, yeah, the
Just
big
be
thing comes up
honest.
is just be honest.
Just be honest.
Yeah.
And it's not fair to lie. It's not fair.
Well, it will
Um,
catch up with you. Go ahead, Steve.
yes. On the flip side as well, I think when you get together, you need to have some sort of verbal exchange in which you bring across some level of acceptance where you make the person know that, look here, I am prepared to hear you out and give you a fair hearing.
Mm.
Because if they get the perception that you are going to
Just
flip the script and
judge
decide
them.
or judge them upon hearing anything negative, then that may, um, you know, disincentivize the whole idea of becoming of being upfront. You know, some people, if they know that judgment is coming, should anything be found in their closet, they're just gonna come out.
And if that is the case, that may not be the person you need to be married to anyway. If the person
Absolutely.
cannot forgive you, the
Forgive you
person for past
for
events,
past.
if
For
it's something
past
the person
events.
cannot forgive you about, then
Mm.
this is not the person you need to be married to.
And I
There's
mean,
someone out there that would be willing to forgive.
and I mean, let's be honest. I mean, there can be some stuff that's pretty hard to forgive, but I
I
mean,
know that
I know, but
but if
at
we
some level,
the person should be
should be
able to forgive you eventually, at least
absolutely,
before you get married. Because
but
if the person still cannot forgive you, you should not get married. You really should.
I told a story once about some time back about a father walking by the beach with his son, and he asked his son 3, 4 times, "Son, say I'm sorry." He said, "Dad, I didn't do nothing. Why should I say I'm sorry?" I said, "I know, but just say I'm sorry." So he said that about 3 or 4 times to the son. And when the son said, "Okay, Dad, I'm sorry," so he said, "Okay, now you're ready for marriage because you because you know how to say it." And sometimes just because we forgive doesn't mean that their past issues that they might have had or situation. It doesn't mean that you just feel okay all of a sudden. I mean,
Nope.
it's a process, and I love the
Yeah.
person. I forgive them, but don't expect me to be fully okay with it right now. It's going to take
true.
some time, but I still love you. I forgive
Yeah.
you, and it just means I got to work more on me now rather than you.
I need to heal.
And
Yeah.
yeah, you gotta, yeah. And I think, just give me time to heal because I have forgiven you. It still hurt. It's not like the wound closes
The
up
wound is open, right?
because we're human and we have emotions that just doesn't go away overnight. It takes time, but with the grace of God and prayer and also a good support group, also, I feel really can help in that healing process. So if we're going to move along to fears now. So what do you think are some of the biggest fears, even for couples entering into that? Carol always look
Uh,
at Steve as if she's had some fear before she jumped the broom, so to speak, right? What are some fears that they really have that big hesitation? And I know we all have that big anticipation to tie the knot and everything else, but I guess there's some reserves, fear. So let's hear from you, Carol, because you're looking
um,
at Stephen first.
I think
Okay,
my
Stephen.
biggest fear, and I think a lot of men, their biggest fear as well, is not being adequate enough to please
Not being
their
what
wife.
you cut out a little bit there. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think my greatest fear, and I think a lot of men have the same fear, and that feeling that you might not be able to please your wife in the sense
Okay.
that
Mm,
um,
that's
when
legit.
you're happy, whether it's, in every area, whether it's in sexual, financial, emotional, um, you know that there's something that she requires in order for her happiness, not necessarily her joy, but her happiness.
Mm,
And if you kind of look into yourself and you're thinking, am I capable of sustaining an environment,
right.
right?
Right.
uh, that is conducive for her happiness.
Mm-hmm.
And you kind of balance that with the weaknesses that you know you have. And sometimes you just feel like, wow, life you feel life might just throw you a curveball. And when life throws you that curveball, then her love and admiration for you. If you're not able to handle that curveball, that her love and admiration for you.
So tell me about this curveball here. What curveball do you think could come up there?
Yeah, you have a lot of them. Like, for example, even with COVID, the challenges that COVID brought, that curveball for a lot of families, you know. A lot of people really their relationship was tested, you know.
Our business depended mainly on schools and churches. And schools and churches were closed.
Okay.
So that was a big thing for us.
Yeah, that was a big curveball, you know, and you couldn't see potentially how that could have been a power thing, you know. So these are things that men think about, that people what curveball is gonna come around.
The funny thing about Stephen and myself was I didn't know he had these fears.
Until just now?
No. I knew, I found that out long ago, but I didn't know these, because he would just shut down. And I remember saying, why would you shut down? And then here, after we sorted out that
I was
shutting
staying
down,
calm, you know, for once. You want anyone in the boat to panic.
like I said, when he stopped shutting off whenever anything goes bad, and I remember I'm saying, Stephen, I kept asking him, how do we talk to men about the fact that they don't need to shut down so dramatically? You understand? Because he would just shut down. And I kept asking him, what made you shut down? And I wouldn't stop bugging him about, baby, tell me now. I'm trying to understand now that you're out of that phase, because now we really do talk about most things. Now that you're out of that phase, can you feel? And then I remember one day he said, I was just afraid that one day you'll see me, the fear and everything that exists inside of me. And I was just afraid that it was just you're just going to see it and you wouldn't find it attractive. I wouldn't really find that you talk about the way you talk about me. You're going to see that you're going to think me weak and think. And I'm like, all of that was in your head.
There we go again with us men. That's the stories that we tell ourselves that are not true.
And he's saying that's the fear most men have. Most men are afraid that one day when wake up and don't think they are the knight in shining armor. They're not as awesome. And that's why some men just do the tough exterior thing all the time and keep that as their poker face, right? And so
I don't know if you understand the analogy. When you play poker,
you have to disclose what is in your hand by your face. And so I think the same thing with Stephen. Stephen kept saying it was just easier to just keep this bravado. And I'm saying, and I keep asking, with me? Why with me? Did I give you a reason? But then he said, this is a guy thing, Carol. It has nothing to do with you, it's a guy thing. And so that's our fear. That one day you're going to look at you, and the way you always talk about me, the way you always tell people about me, that one day you're going to see me not like that. You're going to see all this fear and all this stuff. Drives me crazy underneath, but I just don't want to talk about. And I think I started on, but most women don't know this. Because if we know this, not all, but most women, if most women know this, right, then we will deal with things differently. Remember, we think you're these big, strong men who are capable of all these things.
Yes.
So when we ask you to do something I don't do, and you don't say, baby, I don't know how to do it. Give me some time, let me teach myself. I remember saying to Stephen, Stephen, you don't have to answer me now, you know. Tell me, give you 2 days. You don't have to answer me. Just tell me something so I leave you alone. You know? But because I don't know, he's not talking, so I'm going to auto-fill. If the feel for doing it is a man thing, whatever. While if he says to me, Ross, I don't know how to do it, but I'll teach myself. Give me another day or two. Right now I'm busy, I can't take it on. I will shut up. Yes, I just want to know why. Or if he says, honey, you're going to have to do this one. This is all you. You're going to figure out how this is done. And I'm leaving this to you. That's an answer. Give me an answer. So, for me, my fear was always, well, not with Stephen, but prior to marriage. Stephen kind of fixed that for me. But prior to marriage, I always was nervous that some man is gonna try to make me do the way I am. I must do the things his way. or else. And I knew I was going to give him a hard time if that happened. When Stephen and I talked, he didn't have that personality. It was always about whatever is best for you. To the point where I admitted that I literally actually lost myself for a while because he was like that. It became easy for me to want what he wanted.
So you lost the love for yourself because you said you're trying to please him more than you're trying to please yourself?
I lost the love for myself. I don't think I lost the love for myself.
Okay.
I lost the passion I had to do what I wanted.
Okay, you lost the passion.
And I transferred that passion to what he wanted.
Okay.
And it was easy because I was crazy about it. But had he not been that person, I would have like Bullbuck and Duffy Vampire.
Well, you know, I've always said there's a lot of women on that island that you just spoke about, because we still love ourselves, but the passion that we have, we put it now towards the man because we want to please him. But it'd be so beautiful though if both try to please one another with that same passion. You know how much more beautiful that would be. But what I'm hearing from Steve is, what I've heard from some men also, is like we come in with an armor because we want to be the knight, we want to be the king, we want to be the one that's riding in and capturing this beautiful woman and taking her. But at the same thing, we as men, we lack that vulnerability. What I'm hearing a lot because that's, I wouldn't say that's just how we're built, or is it a man thing? I mean, when it comes to vulnerability, the wife, or you know, the woman, she's more willing to let it go. She's more willing to tell it like it is. But for us men, sometimes, and I found that myself in times back, you know, I've even had to get coaching on some situations in my life that open up doors now to where I could be better than I was before. But we can always think we have it together and never really go look for, whether it looks for information or take coaching or counseling, because I find that it's the women that will always come up front and say, we have a problem, we need to fix this because there's some things happening. At the same time, I hear what you're saying, Steve, coming in with an armor, and it seems like though Carol basically slowly stripped that armor off of you so you could actually have those uncomfortable conversations. Is that right?
Definitely. Our interaction allowed me to access tools that make communication so much more effective, so much better now. And the whole strategy of honesty and vulnerability is very freeing, you know. And I would definitely recommend for men to realize that it's okay to be weak sometimes, because what you're gonna find is a lot of your strength is gonna accompany your weakness. It's this paradox that sometimes I can't even explain it, but it doesn't make it any less real. There's a paradox to being vulnerable that gives you strength.
I remember something had happened. I don't want to go into the video. Something had happened, and I remember I was at my wit's end. I remember I was talking about it, and I probably shared it another time, but I was talking to him about it, and he had his armor up, right up here. He had his armor fully up. Not even a little people. Armor, everything was up.
Tell us about it.
At this time, I was going to be hurt, and I was not going to raise my voice, but he was going to know where I'm at. And I remember that was one of the days I did. I don't think I cried. No, I'm not crying. I'm going to say what I have to say, and I'm going. And I said what I have to say. I figured he was just going to remain with his armor up as usual.
Okay.
And that day, he took off the head.
Okay.
And he said in a very faint voice, I almost didn't hear it, Carol Ross, I'm so sorry. And I didn't hear what he said. I know I heard that, but I wasn't sure. And I said, what did you say? And he said, I'm sorry. But the funny thing, I told him that God made him say, I'm sorry that day. God spoke to him that day, that the armor was not going to work. And he said, I am sorry. And that's when I started crying. Because I wasn't going to cry. I really wasn't. But when he said, Carol, I'm sorry. I'm really, really sorry.
Mm.
And then I was wrong all along. Just didn't want to say it. I'm sorry. And I remember I stopped talking. There was nothing more I could say. Because when I was totally thrown off, because I expected him to put the armor up and a screw and make sure that I can pull the little thing. I was prepared for that. But then when he said, I'm sorry, I'm telling you, it made a world
World
of
of difference.
I felt this thing came off my head,
Mm.
and I felt at that moment that he was ready to listen.
So here's
And I
interesting.
really do believe that it was that moment that something in his brain said, stop going in the cave when something is wrong. And
Come out of
hear
the cave.
her out. And even at that point, I kept asking him later on, why you were in the cave? And we weren't able to talk about him and this cave thing that he would go and hide in, whatever. And it made my life better. I realized I stopped having these headaches. I didn't
Just
have
by him saying I'm
anymore.
sorry.
Just by him being willing to at least have a discussion about it. The funny thing, we talked about a lot of stuff, but there were things that he would just shut down on.
So
Very
this is
simple things.
so this is interesting. When he said I'm sorry, was there a discussion about why he was sorry or what he was sorry about, or was it just
I think I mentioned a number of things to him, and he said he knew, but he kept shutting me down on those things. And when he said I'm sorry, it meant I know I was shutting you down. I knew I was wrong to do it.
okay?
I just thought it was easier for me to deal with.
Mm. Mm.
But like I said, him saying I'm sorry made a world of difference. I think men underestimate the power they have. Let me paint it in a very simple way. In order for you to get me, you have to talk. You don't, something you tell me that made my experience. So you look at me as a man, you like what you see, you like the physical, the
Right.
visual. And
Right.
so it prompts you to talk.
Mm-hmm.
You have to come and Jamaicans would call it lyrics.
Lyrics.
It prompts you to talk.
Okay.
And then when you talk, you speak into my spirit.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when I respond to you. Because maybe I never used to even notice you. But when you spoke to me, you spoke into my spirit.
Mm.
You see this thing where men don't want to talk? It's opposite to getting what you need.
Mm.
When you speak into our spirit, whatever you speak into our spirit, that's what you're going to get out. Every time I'm frustrated about something, and Stephen give me the talk,
Right.
I'm a different person. He will say, sit, Ross. Sit, I'm Ross, and he's going to give me a discussion talk. When he's going to set me straight, he says, listen, Ross, you're not looking at it from the right angle. And I'll be quiet and I'll say, and by the time he's finished talking, I'll say, okay, I get you. I hear you. All right. I'm calm.
My wife is
woman, don't run and hide with me. You have the ability to speak to our spirit because that's the gift of God. Everything you have as a remember, you're built to give, you're a giver. Deposit. You're a deposit. Everything
I was just going to say that when you said I was sorry, you're actually making a heartfelt deposit into her emotional system that gravitates. But I want to ask one question though, Stephen. How hard was it to come up and actually say I'm sorry? And I'll tell you my past experience. Is it something you just said, I got to go and say I'm sorry, or was that something that you're pondering, didn't know how you're going to do it, or how you're going to approach, or what was going on there?
The funny thing is, you feel a physical restraint, like your body is in rebellion.
Okay, I can.
You literally feel like every alarm in your head is like, no, do what in the face that you crazy.
All the bells go. All the bells go off.
Having a physical reaction to saying sorry, you know. Okay.
So, Stephen, you mentioned that you felt a restraint. Tell us about that restraint you said you felt when you
yes.
know you had to say I'm sorry as a man.
When I saying the words I'm sorry, you feel almost like a physical restraint. It's almost like your body was rebelling against you, you know? But once the words came out, it was like a floodgate release, you know?
Yes.
It's like everything that came after became easier.
You
know, it's like I would describe it like when the sink is filled with water because the drain is clogged up.
Right.
And then once you remove the clog, then everything just flows. That's true. And you would think that that would be passed on, like osmosis, it just, rub off on you. But I guess we're just not built that way, all the men I know, it's not saying sorry is not the easiest.
It's not easy, but as you said, it's not easy, but it's such a release because it's like I can finally now breathe properly.
Yes.
Because like I said, I had some experience too in the past, and we'll still have those times that comes up. And I think what caused that restraint so much, as I was saying, is that if I'm not careful, I'll make it more about her. Like, well, how come she's not coming and apologize? But does it have to be her first? The onus was on me. So by me getting rid of that restraint, by me stepping into that, I call it into that uncomfortable zone, I'm releasing myself where conversations can now start to flow again more of a heartfelt way rather than just a few words. So yeah, is that a man thing, Stephen? Like, is that a man thing that we restraint, or do the women feel the same way too? I don't know.
I think our ego just.
It's an ego.
Yes, I think the ego is of an obsessive compulsive thing that says no, we don't want the flaw. We grow up having this culture where we play games, right? Where win or lose. Like men play dominoes, men play video games. Right. Everything is a point system. I think so. Yeah, so it's a win or lose. In our head, we're obsessed with winning or losing.
But the funny thing about it, how true that is, Tim Fox told me how he started noticing her. He explained what he saw in me when he wanted to get to know. My Sunday school teacher and I would walk along. We would be at each other arguing in Sunday school class. And every time, if any one of the Sunday school teachers, whenever they said something that I agree with, I stopped talking. I was like, okay, that makes sense. And I would sit down and I'm done. I wasn't arguing because I wanted to, I was arguing because I wasn't agreeing. It wasn't because I wanted to, and the minute they made a point that I thought, okay, that makes sense. In the middle of an argument, I'll be like, oh, that makes sense. That makes sense. I never thought of that. And I'm done. And I was thinking about that was the person he married. So his need constantly win, put that in quotation. I didn't even understand that was possible because that was not the girl he met. And if I did something wrong, I'd call him before he gets home. Baby, I'm so sorry. I would call and I would tell him long before he even gets home. And I would I've always said sorry, big. My stories are usually I know how to say I'm sorry. When I'm sorry, I really am a better. But I didn't understand why that was not reciprocated because I didn't judge him when he talked about most things. I didn't really judge him when he bring it up in advance.
Yeah, from his perspective, it's from the perspective that Steve is bringing up is as if by me saying sorry, you win and I lose. But in reality, it's actually a win-win situation. Because most conversation that takes place, most conflicts that take place where one walk away, well, there really was no compromise. One person got what they want, one person didn't get what they wanted to. But when you actually compromise, which is one of the biggest things in a relationship, if you can't compromise in a relationship, you're definitely going to have issues. And if you really have a challenge compromising, it means that you had issues compromising in possibly other areas of your life that has led up to where you are right now. But when you compromise, it's a beautiful thing because Stephen doesn't get everything that he wants. Carol doesn't get everything that she wants. But at the end of the day, you get what's best for the relationship.
Yeah,
that's it. So I think
we're at such a better place because now he will bring up an issue. He will bring it up before I do. Normally that didn't usually happen.
So he's grown. He's grown.
Oh Lord. Oh gosh. I'm so happy.
You're so happy?
I'm so happy.
Well, listen, Well, listen, we have come to the end of our program here. So I really enjoyed this conversation. Was enlightening. I believe that those that are listening can learn and take something in a way to help them in preparation. But again, like we mentioned, just because you know all this and so many other books you might read about it, it doesn't mean that you're going to avoid some challenges coming up. Those
Yep.
challenges and those conflict has to come because you'll never know the strength of your relationship without a challenge. You'll never know the strength of it without conflict, but it's how you,
Your
it's how you
personal
maneuver.
strength
Yeah,
as well as your
it will
personal
help
strength.
strengthen. You said earlier, like you know, it's when I'm weak that now I'm become strong, as Paul said. Like, sometimes I have to become weak. Sometimes I have to be in this valley so that I can now depend on God and depend on one another to make us stronger. So I thank both of you for joining me. These folks, Carol and Stephen, they are coming live from Jamaica, and we're so glad to have them. They are part of the program Marriage Matters, which is an international ministry that they are a part of in Jamaica. I believe that's every second Thursday. They're online there. Do you have the information for that, Stephen or Carol? I know I just put you on the spot, but do you have the information
The
for that?
ID is Marriage Matters.
Okay, so for Marriage Matters, the meeting ID is 886-3603-4802. The meeting ID is 886-3603-4802. And the password is marriage, capital M.
Capital M for
It's
marriage.
every other Thursday. So this Thursday we're on, and then we'll be on, not next Thursday, but the other Thursday.
Okay.
Every other Thursday at 8:30.
Okay, well, thank you for that. Again, thanks for tuning in. And as folks know, those who are listening, if you like what you hear, you like the program, you know what, just click on the like button below and subscribe so you'll get the next upcoming weekly program. We're here every Friday at 5:30 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. It's all about love, how we can connect and how we can connect and love better, love more, so that we can end up living that happily ever after life. Who wouldn't want to live that happily ever after life? It's all about love. It's all about connection. It's all about intimacy and so much more. So thank you once again. Those that want to check out my website, Bonitto Grange, your host. Website is www.tlcbonittogrange.com. You can learn a little bit about me there. Feel free to connect anytime. And God bless and have a wonderful and amazing day or evening wherever you are in